Writer's block. Is it real? Is it something that actually exists? Or is it something that, is it a concept that we made up? What I'm going to talk about now is simply the result of my thinking. I'm not claiming what I say to be true. But I wanted to open this discussion with you guys because I have felt a lot of times some kind of shame in feeling uninspired as an artist. They call it writer's block. So technically when the artist wants to write something but is not able to, wants to create something but is not able to. And recently I've been thinking, is it even real? Maybe it's a concept that we came out with because our society wants us to be productive, wants us to be very productive all the time, and doing nothing is considered a waste of time, and art is considered something that has to be useful. And in this sense, art is seen as a product. Now, I imagine a society where there is no such thing. Imagine like an idyllic kind of society where kind of hunter-gatherers sort of thing. Again, I'm not saying anything historically accurate here. This is just me imagining. But I imagine that in an idyllic society, there is a time for gathering, a time for hunting, a time for eating, a time for caring, and then a time for creating, because humans do create. That's in our nature, I think, to create. I imagine that it would be something like people gather around a fire and they play an instrument or they sing. I have thought of a term that is recreational repetition, which is like repetition is something that soothes us, and repeating rhythms, repeating melodies, repeating harmonies is something that was probably functional to well-being in general, to mental well-being. And so there might be a different idea of the artist in the modern era. But eventually, what does it all boil down to? Like, why do we create? Why do we consume? Which is another term that entails art being a product to consume. But like, why do we use that art? Maybe it is for the same reason, for mental well-being, to have fun, to cry, to reflect. But the artist in the modern age is some kind of a capitalist in a way, unless they kept order art to themselves. And this is not too new, like even in the past centuries, there was the idea of the artist doing things under commission, and it's nothing new. But maybe compared to that hunter-gatherer sort of idea, in which I'm thinking, what is the primal function of creating? There is a modern idea of the artist that is an artist that produces something that must be consumed. And in that sense, there is the concept of writer's block. I have a very Zen approach to life, and I think that whatever comes is the thing that is supposed to come in that moment. So like, if I get inspired in that moment, it's because X, Y, and Z combined into a way that an idea is created. Why am I not inspired in that moment? It's because there were no conditions to allow me to be inspired. And being inspired, I think, is a very specific mental state in which you feel with your body and mind, you feel the motivation to seek for something else, to do something else, to create, to find. And when we are bored, we find in our creation. When there is nothing around us, we find in our creation. And that brings me to another side of the modern society, which is the overstimulated society, where there are too many inputs and maybe too few outputs from each individual person. There are a lot of outputs in society overall. I'm not saying that there aren't. We are full of art, we are full of products, we are full of creation, but in each individual's life there is less output. We consume more than we create. I'm not thinking about artists now, I think about general people that do other types of jobs. And I've seen a few YouTube videos exploring this idea of the death of the hobbies, and it's very interesting because it seems like asking what is your hobby was a normal thing maybe in the 90s, in the noughties, and before that, but it's becoming less obvious to predict what the answer will be from a young person that is born with a tablet in their hands. I don't want to be the boomer that says that the phones ruined everything, but in terms of creating all the technological stimuli we have do ruin our boredom, and therefore that seeking I was talking about before, that creating something out of nothing is not anymore. So what am I trying to say here? Is writer's block something that we should be concerned about or not? Well, in terms of, I think, feeling like we have to, as artists, create, there might be different sides to this. There might be the fact that some artists by nature are very prolific and some other artists are not. For example, I don't consider myself to be a very prolific artist. Sometimes I hear musicians saying, oh, I've written about a few hundreds songs, and that to me is crazy. Like, how can you write hundreds of songs? But for some people that's natural and that's beautiful, and I love that. But some other people are not as prolific, and I think there shouldn't be any shame in that. And maybe that's when the wrong usage of the term writer's block comes in, because the way you are is different from others. So for example, the way I feel about this is that I don't want to do 100 mediocre songs. I want to do a few beautiful songs. Of course, it's subjective whether I achieve that goal. And I'm not saying that who writes hundreds of songs doesn't write beautiful songs, or that all of them are mediocre songs. They might all be masterpieces. But I think that the way I approach it is that if I had to write hundreds of songs in like 10 years, most of them would be mediocre songs. But even is there something wrong in that? I don't think there is anything wrong in that. If you want to write 100 mediocre songs that then lead to writing a masterpiece, or that were written because in that moment you felt the need to express something, to get something out of your chest, do write them. But don't feel any shame if you don't. Let's not feel like we have to create the concept of writer's block to justify the fact that maybe we're not prolific artists, maybe we write a few things, and maybe even if there are a few, not all of them will be good still. Again, if you have watched my previous video, this seems to be, again, a problem, like an issue of consistency, that we feel like we have to be consistent, we feel like we have to be relevant, And also, like, artists, when they get signed by labels, for example, are asked to produce a certain number of singles, albums, EPs in a set amount of time. And this has been like this not only now, but also in the past decades. And this has been a problem for someone that feels like art shouldn't be forced. The art is not a product. And that works in favor of that prolific type of artist. But I feel that is something that plays with the nature of someone that is not naturally a prolific artist. But also, going back to that idea of being overstimulated all the time, there is indeed an issue of feeling dry in an artistic sense. I remember when I was a teenager and I was writing my first lyrics, every little thing that was around me was potentially sparking an idea, a metaphor, a poem, a play of words. And I feel less so in the past few years. I've been feeling less inspired, maybe also because of personal things that have happened in my life and a difficult time globally. But when I do the effort of putting my phone and my laptop away, I for sure see the difference. So I know it's difficult to do that because the system is built in a way that we are addicted to these devices. But let's try and embrace boredom more. Let's try and embrace boredom and not think of it as a waste of time. It is not. Let's not try to seek the useful side of it, but if you really want to see the useful side of it, it's good for our mental health, to switch off from time to time. It's good for our creativity. So let's embrace it more. But if you wanted to be more creative on demand, I have some tips for you. So what I do, and I'm talking about music because I'm a musician, but you can try and apply this to other art forms. When I want to push myself to write a song or write lyrics or music, I realize there is not any harm in taking inspiration from already existing music. So what I do, first of all, I listen, I observe in whatever song I'm listening, patterns. I'm learning from the patterns I observe, and I learn from the novelty. So if I'm listening to a song and I try to learn it on guitar, whenever I come across a new chord, that might be the thing that sparks my creativity, because it's something that activates more and new synapses, and that might be the starting point of a song. It doesn't matter if you stole the chord from a different song, because we always use the same chords all the time. That was just the excuse of what got you writing and what got you inspired in the first place. So listen to a song, learn it through your voice or through the guitar or through whatever instrument you play, and pick the little things, pick a few of them and make a million out of them. That's my main piece of advice. It's basically learning new vocabulary. Like when you want to write something new, maybe using always the same words is not gonna inspire you or getting you anywhere new. It's always gonna get you in the same places. So if, on the other hand, you learn new vocabulary, it's like learning new words, and therefore you can express new concepts. So guys, this was what I think about the concept of writer's block. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not agree with things that I've said. What is your idea of this? And if you have maybe changed your idea during the years. And let me know if you have any other tips on how to unblock ourselves. from this phantomatic writer's block. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.